host, Renee Kranz. In the studio with me today, I have Robyn Bruggeman. Welcome, Robyn.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, many of you know Robyn from various things, from Ignition, from her own show, Living Lit, which is part of what we're going to talk about today, and just being around the diocese, because Robyn, you've sometimes gone to parishes to speak, at some conferences, different things.
Yeah.
So,
been around a little bit.
Yeah, she has been. She's been around. She's I think a fan favorite maybe. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
I don't really know for sure. We don't get a lot of fan mail. Come on, guys, fan mail.
Renee needs some.
Yeah, our crayons at sfcatholic.org. Come on. So we wanted Robyn to come in today to talk about a couple of things. We want to hear about her show, Living Lit, and her apostolate, see how it's going. And then we also wanted to talk about, because she does living liturgically, what does her family do during Advent and the Christmas season, which actually begins on Christmas? And what do you do amid all the chaos and the older kids and younger kids and all kinds of stuff? So Robyn's the perfect person to talk about all these different facets. So thank you for coming in and spending some time with us.
Happy to.
Will you first start, for anybody who doesn't know anything about you, will you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. So I'm Robyn. I am wife to Spike. I am mom to 7 children. My oldest 3 are married. So I have 2 son-in-laws and a daughter-in-law. I have 2 grandkids. I have a granddaughter who's 4, a grandson who's 1.5 years. I'm a Catholic convert. That's about all there is to me.
How long ago did you convert?
Oh, goodness. Probably like 27 or 28 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after we were married, but before we had kids.
Yeah. Okay. And you have 4 little ones at home.
Yes.
Young, I shouldn't say little.
Yeah, they're
4
middles
that
and
are not
littles are home.
graduated.
Yeah, that's true. 4 at home.
What are their ages?
18, 16, 14, and 11.
Oh gosh, you'll have one graduating
Yes,
in May.
I will.
Oh
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. Yep, so we have a
busy at
wide
your
range.
house.
It is busy. We have an active household.
Yeah, you do. And if you don't know, so Robyn lives just across the river in Iowa, but she has chosen to make the Sioux Falls Diocese her home.
Yes.
So we're very.
It's where I became Catholic, so it's my home.
Yeah. And I mean, where would you go to church if you didn't come to Sioux Falls?
There's Larchwood, Iowa.
But that's how far?
A little bit, not much further, but a little bit further than Sioux Falls is closer.
Yeah.
But
So
it's
you
where
might as well
we've
come
just
here.
been active, and like I said, it's where I became Catholic. So
Made sense.
Made
sense.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, of course, you are the host of Living Lit. If you don't know Living Lit, so it is on our diocesan YouTube channel right now. You can always find it there at SF Diocese. So, Robyn, tell us a little bit about the show, and then how is it going so far?
Yeah. So, Living Lit podcast just turned 1, which is super exciting. It's been a great year of just great guests. I am so blessed with just really just amazing people that have come on that live the faith and are willing to share it and encourage us on the way. I forgot what you asked me now.
Tell us about the show.
Tell us about the show. Okay, so Living Lit is short for living in truth and short for living liturgical and liturgical life. So I really focus on the faith is truth. The Catholic faith is the truth. And what does it look like to live in truth? And what does it mean to live a liturgical life? How can we live a liturgical life? Live the life of the church outside of the church building.
Right.
So I'm going to Mass, absolutely great. It's the best thing we can do all week. It's the greatest prayer. But how can we let the Mass spill out into the rest of our life and live it? Live it within us, but live it within our families, in our workplaces, in our homes. So that's really where my passion lies. I love everything about the domestic church, the family, the home family, and it's our little church, at home. And it's something that the Lord has invited me into. And I would say I was really an unlikely person for it. But the Lord invited me into it, and it's just been beautiful. When I've learned more about domestic church life and the domestic church, our family, and how we can live the faith in that way has really changed our life as a family. And I just want to share that with others. I don't live it perfectly, but I'm trying. And so that's just kind of where the podcast was born out of, that desire that the Lord placed on my heart and invited me into. And also just the seeking the truth, that's what I really found by becoming Catholic and embracing that faith. I have found truth, and I want other people to recognize and see that and embrace it and love it, because for so many of us, it's there, right? The Catholic faith is there.
Yeah.
But when you really start to make these connections in the faith, like why we do what we do, the reasoning behind it, and just how beautiful the liturgical life is when you bring that into your life, it just changes everything.
Yeah.
So the podcast was born out of that. And I just want to just share that with others and invite other people on the journey to, look into living a life like that too.
Yeah. Okay. So what kind of guests, like who have you had on?
Yeah.
And like, what's coming up? What kind of guests have you had on? What have you talked about? And what do you have coming?
So I've been so blessed with great guests. Oh my goodness. I've had a fair amount of priests on, which is always just great. We are blessed with so many fantastic priests in our diocese, and many of them just have different passions, that they can speak to, topics and things. So I've had priests on, we've had religious sisters, which we are also blessed with in our diocese. I've had lay people, which are just, normal people like you and I, non-religious people that share the faith. Dr. Bergwald has been on before, Father Scott, and different other ministries that I like to highlight, and whether or not maybe they're, in maybe social media world. Had some really great guests that I can kind of highlight their ministry, but it can be great resources. So that's the other thing I really want to provide for people is resources, like to enhance their faith, to maybe bring the faith more into their home. If they have children, here are some resources to help you, bring into the home that can make things easier and more accessible for you. So I've had really great guests in that way too. So just great. And I've been working on the last year, a library, I would say, of different topics of things that maybe come up in domestic church living and life, or liturgical living, we'll say. So I've been working on building a library of, I would say, kind of hopefully timeless topics.
Yeah.
Where people can kind of go back into the archives of the podcast and, tap into those if they have different questions. We've tackled some really sensitive topics as well. Yeah. So I just want that resource, that library resource, to be there. And then we've also sprinkled in some liturgical living and liturgical life, some feast days, and what's to come will be more of that. So bringing more of the liturgical life and liturgical living, what that looks like outside of church, how we can do that in the home, in our life. So that's what will be the next layer coming to Living Lit.
Okay. So since you started, as you've been going on this journey with your apostolate, what's changed over the last year? Because I'm sure it may not be the same as what you thought it was going to be all the time.
That's a good question. It's kind of a both and like both and neither. It's been a great year. It's been a good year of learning. I think the Lord is just continually teaching us stuff and refining what he's asking us into. I will say one of the biggest challenges is to go at the Lord's pace.
Oh, sure.
It can be easy to get ahead of where the Lord wants you to be going, whether you're excited or you have these ideas, but kind of like making sure, okay, Lord, is this what you want? Because the apostolate isn't mine, it's his.
Right.
It's his.
It's hard to not want to take control over it.
Yeah. And I won't say I'm a controlling person, but when you just have ideas or think, oh, this would be really great. It's just like, okay, those times where it's like, okay, slowing down to make sure that I'm with the Lord. Okay, Lord, is this what you want done? Or this is what you want to be seen? Yeah. But along with that, the flip side of that is making sure I'm keeping up with the Lord. Because he reveals, different things like, okay, this is, the direction, or different ideas or things that should be part of the apostolate. And sometimes it's keeping up, because I can be like, oh, I don't know, you have to be really vulnerable to throw yourself out there. So I would say the biggest challenge is staying with the pace of the Lord, not getting ahead of him, not getting behind him, but walking with him and making sure that what the apostolate is doing and offering is what he wants. So that's probably been the biggest challenge. But I will say that with everything, it's continually coming back to what he's originally invited me into, which he's placed on me for years, and what we've been kind of building this last year. And he keeps bringing it back to that. So he's making it clear what he's desiring at this time, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Can you tell us where you're going next?
Where am I going next? Yeah. Well, continuing to build the library, but then the next layer is, like building in more of the liturgical living. And then the next thing will be visiting parishes. I really want to get out and meet the people. I'm so thankful for the listeners and the viewers that have been following along so far. And I just invite more people onto the journey, because it's more fun if we do this together and we have a community and can be resources for one another. So the next layer will be going out hopefully, God willing, to the parishes in our diocese. And I want to meet the people. I want to invite them into this. So yeah, that'll be kind of one of the next layers. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that I'm not ready to share yet, but like with anything, there's even you hear the diocese in general. There's a lot more going on than people see. So it's kind of how the apostolate is too, but trying to take at the Lord's pace. And this is just the beginning. So I'm really excited about it.
Good.
Yeah.
If you just joined us, we're talking to Robyn Bruggeman about her show Living Lit and living the Catholic faith at home during Christmas. So let's shift gears a little bit, Robyn.
Right.
How do you and your family celebrate Advent and then Christmas kind of all through the season?
Yeah. So Advent, we really try to set the tone and create an atmosphere of Advent to make it look different than Christmas, which can be tricky, especially with our decorations, right? Greenery, things like this, because we want the home to show the family we're in a different season, right? And so like we have that set up that way. If you come into our house, you might think it looks Christmassy. To us, it's going to be Advent. We have different greenery, different things, but we have the Advent wreath. We love the Advent wreath, and that's been a staple through the years. So you'll see things like that are Advent, that shows the preparing. We're in a time of preparation for Christmas. And so like our nativities, if you come to our house, our nativity sets, one of them travels throughout the house. We have a traveling nativity where all the members of the nativity are making their way through the house, through the bedrooms, through all the rooms, traveling to our main stable. But then our other little nativities don't have baby Jesus yet.
Right.
Because he hasn't come yet.
Right.
And so there's that longing there, that anticipation. So we're trying to build that in the home in simple ways. And this year I try to make it really simple. There are years and seasons where I can do a lot of fun things. Right. And then there's years where either I can't or the Lord's just not inviting us into
life
a
just
lot.
Happens.
So we're just keeping things simple. But then we'll transition into Christmas. And that's, I think, where a lot of people are missing out.
Yeah.
Because they're celebrating Christmas before Christmas has happened. And so that is a beautiful time of transition that I absolutely love in the home when we transition into the Christmas season, which, like you had mentioned at the beginning of the show, that starts on December 25.
Right.
And then it goes for a little while after Christmas up until the baptism of our Lord.
Right.
So, if anybody could take anything from this show, I hope that they will just say, oh my goodness, Christmas, don't leave it on the table. Don't stop when you're supposed to just be starting, because there's so much left there to celebrate and to do.
Yeah, for sure. How has it changed with your, because for sure, I mean, all your kids were younger and then now you've got really a mix. So how has it changed over the years for you?
Yeah, it has. That we, like I said, we do have some staples like the Advent wreath and different things, but there's been a lot of shifting, and especially because I have 7 kids. So at one time it was pretty chaotic with all the kids at home. But for most of our life, or my life as a mom, we've had a range of, I've got my bigs, my middles, and my littles. And how do we have celebrations or even times of penance where we can all enter in together without excluding, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like I've lived just about every season, living the faith in the home with so many ages and stages.
Yeah.
And we have had to make some changes and some tweaks, but I will say that my older kids have been really good about staying with some of the traditions that maybe they could have or would have graduated out of if they didn't have younger siblings. I think it's because there are a lot of traditions that are just traditionally done as Catholics in different feasts and seasons that you actually don't have to be a certain age or you don't get too old for.
Right.
So, but we have had to tweak some things, and in different seasons that are more busy, we don't do as much, And strangely, you'd think I'd have more time now, but I actually don't. Now that more of my kids have left home. But it's whatever the Lord is calling you into. I think that living the faith in the home can either be special or stressful. And I'm focused on making it special. And if we try to do too much, or the things that, so-and-so is doing this, or this in the home, maybe feel like I have to. No, it's going to be stressful. And if it feels stressful, then that's not what the Lord wants.
Right.
So we just try to do what's, speaking to us in that season that's going on, and our season of life.
Yeah.
What does life look like for our family right now? But making sure it's special and not stressful.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I wanted to go next. So a lot of parents feel really overwhelmed, especially right now. So What would you recommend to help them find peace and calm for their families right now?
Do you mean like in Advent or Christmas?
Yeah.
Anytime?
Yeah. Anytime it's chaotic, but especially now because it seems like this is a time when it really ramps
it's
up.
ramping up for sure. I would just really speak into make sure it's not stressful. And, you're going to know in your heart where the Lord is calling you if you'll stop and let him. I mean, that would be the first thing. Stop and just be, sit with the Lord and be like, what do you want? What do you want to see our family bring in to help us grow closer to you? Not just in Advent, because that's really what liturgical living is about. Where can we meet God in this? Where can we connect to our faith and encounter the Lord more? And, and that's going to look different. Like what you might do in your home and my home could be different, but it could have the same meaning and the same, what we're trying to achieve the same goal, right? We're trying to acknowledge and live the life of the church with the goal to unite us more to our Lord and in our faith.
Right.
And so I would just invite people to just ask the Lord, what do you want us to bring in or maybe purge out? I mean, I would say that's a lot of the season I'm in this Advent and going into the Christmas season is I feel like the Lord has invited me into more of a making room, like make room for me. Like
that's really good
whether
advice.
There's a lot of stuff like physical clutter or mental clutter or things that are cluttering my being able to be with him more intimately. That's kind of the season I'm in currently. And I feel like as a family, we've let life get cluttered. And so we're needing to purge some things out and make room for him, because thinking of the Advent and Christmas season now, it's like, well, is there room for him to even be? I feel like you can't even get into the crush right now because there's too much crap in the way, So it's like we need to remove things that are like these barriers to us, and just as much as things we want to bring into that space. Yeah. So I guess I would just encourage people to think on that. Are there things in the way that I need to purge out to make room for him? The popular song, "Prepare Him Room." For this time of year. And that's any time of year. It's not just Christmas and Advent. Of course, we highlight it in the church, and its wisdom invites us into this time. Thank God. I mean, what a blessing that our church does that. It's like, well, you guys might not actually slow down or think about preparing room. So the church is like, here you go. I invite you into this season to help you. What a beautiful thing the church does for us. But it's all is there room for him? Is there room in my heart? Is there room in my house? Is there room in my family to let him in to live the faith more? So,
And that's kind of what your apostolate is about, is trying to make room.
Absolutely.
In a life that we really don't do that very much, or certainly not enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you think your celebrations, as your kids continue to get older and have grandkids and so on, how are your celebrations going to change? And are you already seeing this happening?
Yeah, I'm already seeing it happening because I have 3 out of the house, and I have a son that lives down south. And we try to center when the kids are home around what's going on in the church too.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I've said this to you. We kind of joke that we've gone from kids wine to cocktails with my older kids, because I keep kids wine, sparkling cider on hand for different celebrations, whether it's Christ the King or different feast days, whatever, right? Yeah. Which has always been so exciting. The shininess never wears off of kids wine. But then as my kids got older, I mean, it's still, but then I've been like, hey, you want to come over for a cocktail that maybe is related to this? Things like that. So we have had to shift, bring them back. But we try to just, the church, how could someone see these celebrations and not, who doesn't want to come to a party, right? So it has shifted, and it looks a little bit different, but yet we have our staple things that we're bringing back, and to try to keep it centered on the faith. And
yeah, that's really good. I actually had thought of a question I didn't send you ahead of time, but so I was thinking about, sometimes we get really carried away at Christmas. We decorate a lot. We're having lots of parties, and it maybe seems a little like overdoing it. Can we, for feasts, for celebrations like this as Catholics, can we over celebrate, or is this actually what we're supposed to be doing? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a person could over celebrate.
Okay.
And you and I both like to decorate, so we could definitely over decorate. No, I definitely think that you need to find a happy balance, a happy medium in that, because you want the celebrations to still be special and not be, because it could seem as though we're celebrating all the time.
Right.
But so many of our celebrations can't happen without the proper like penance and preparing that goes into before that.
Yeah.
So I think there is kind of a careful balance there. Well, I don't want anybody to feel stressed out to think, oh my gosh, am I doing too much? I think you'll know.
Yeah.
You know, or the kids maybe they're not getting as excited, or they're not noticing maybe the way you're maybe decorating your home for the different feast days or seasons. I think you would just know. But I think a person could potentially go over the top. And honestly, there's probably some times in my life where I have. And I've had to, and actually, you know, that's what's really funny is over the years of living this way, I've collected and gathered a lot of things.
I bet.
Books and prints and pictures and liturgical living goodies and decorations. And, you know, I have found that our best liturgical living happens when we don't have all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
You've made
you don't
room.
need. Yes.
You've made room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and you felt that, and your kids felt that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think it's important to remember that there are feast days and we should celebrate. But yeah, I mean, have people over, celebrate the season, celebrate with your family, but yeah, keep it a little.
But it's like we have to do the work too.
Yeah.
Just like with any celebration, there's work involved.
It's still about Jesus.
You know, you need, exactly. So you have to do the work to get to where you're going, just like Lent. Easter doesn't happen without Lent.
Right.
And Christmas shouldn't happen without Advent. And I think that's something that's been kind of missing in the church for a while is Advent. We can observe it a little bit differently than what the secular world is kind of leading us to believe.
Yeah.
And that's where I just think with Christmas coming, there's so much yet to celebrate. You know, it's just starting. So don't walk away from it when it's just beginning.
Yes. Awesome. Robyn, we're out of time.
It goes so fast.
I know, it always goes so fast.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in and telling us about the show again and how it's going. We'll all pray for success of the show and success of your apostolate, and of course the many apostolates in the diocese, that we can have lots of fruit from all of those. So thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Make sure you go to our YouTube channel at SF Diocese to find Living Lit. There are a year's worth of shows on there, so make sure you check that out. That's it for us today. Hope you'll join us again next week for more Catholic Views.